Tough talk from President Bush on reversing Iraqi aggression.
World News Saturday, brought to you by Bufferin. From ABC News, World News Saturday, here's Carol Simpson.
Good evening. The crisis in the Persian Gulf intensified today as Egyptian and Moroccan troops began arriving in Saudi Arabia to join U.S. forces already there. And more American military personnel were dispatched to the area. There was one bit of good news earlier this afternoon when 11 Americans who'd been trapped in Iraq's capital reached freedom in Amman, Jordan. More on that from ABC's John Donovan.
They are the same Americans who got stuck at the border 2 days ago. One embassy employee, 8 relatives of embassy staff, 1 summer intern. None spoke to reporters. It seemed U.S. officials wanted little known about them.
They're tired, they're exhausted, you know, they just want to get a time to rest.
A 10-year-old California girl named Penelope Nabokov came out with the group, but was kept out of camera range. The Iraqis had taken her off an airliner stranded in Kuwait last week and handed her over to the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The group's stay in Amman was brief. Tonight they caught a flight west, but it is not at all certain when other Americans will follow. Out at the border, plenty of people came across today, Arabs and Japanese, but Iraq appears to have halted passage for any West Europeans or North Americans who do not work for embassies. That leaves nearly 600 Americans inside Iraq, according to the State Department, and 3,000 in Kuwait. There were more Arab demonstrations in support of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein and against the U.S. They were on a small scale here in Jordan today, on a larger scale reportedly in other Arab countries. And Iraqi broadcasting continues to paint the U.S. move into Saudi Arabia as an affront to all Arabs, undertaken at least in part to advance the cause of Israel. Tonight, the claim on Baghdad radio is that some of the arriving U.S. troops are really Israelis in disguise. John Donovan, ABC News, Amman.
In Albany, California today, the father of 10-year-old Penelope Nabokov spoke to reporters. Peter Nabokov expressed his happiness that his daughter is safe, but he said that happiness is tempered by his sympathy for other Americans who are facing the same ordeal he and his wife did.
Penelope is free. She's in Amman. My wife Isabel and I are extremely happy, extremely gratified to have the last 9-day ordeal over with.
Troops from a dozen Arab countries will be arriving in Saudi Arabia over the next few days. The result of the decision made yesterday at the Arab Summit in Cairo. The emergency meeting was called to come up with an Arab solution to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. As ABC senior diplomatic correspondent Barry Dunsmore reports, neither Egypt's President Mubarak nor the other Arab leaders who attended are hopeful.
Egypt's President Mubarak and Saudi Arabia's King Fahd said their goodbyes in Cairo tonight. Each man knows his world has been turned upside down by the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait and the events which have followed. Mubarak reflected his profound and pessimistic feelings when he was asked if a peaceful solution to the crisis would be found. His response in Arabic, "I am always optimistic, but frankly, I tell you, there is no hope. I wish there was." Earlier, while seeing off other summit leaders, Mubarak confirmed that Egyptian forces were already on their way to the Gulf.
We are starting to send some groups for reconnaissance, but if those who want to start some kind of aggression, we are ready also for it.
This is one of the Egyptian C-130 transports leaving Cairo for the Gulf today. The exact number of Egyptian troops was not announced. But for many years, Egyptian and American troops have held joint exercises in the Egyptian desert. Their purpose? To be ready to answer any threat to the world's oil supplies in the Persian Gulf. And so the presence of Egyptian forces in the Gulf should have a practical as well as a political benefit for the U.S. Mubarak also met today with Syrian President Assad. Though he has been an implacable opponent of Washington, Assad has decided that his old enemy Iraq is a greater and more immediate threat. The Egyptians say Syria too will send troops to the Gulf. Emotions are running very high in many Arab capitals today. These were mainly Kuwaitis in Cairo showing their support for their ousted leaders and their anger at Iraq. The Crown Prince of Kuwait tried to be reassuring, but at this point, his hopes for a return to Kuwait must be rated distant at best. Mubarak's pessimism is shared by many people here. While no one really expects Iraq will now risk war with the U.S. by directly attacking Saudi Arabia, neither do they expect Saddam Hussein to capitulate. And so people are bracing themselves for Iraqi-inspired political turmoil and a resurgence of terrorism. Plus, there is a huge question mark about how Iraq will use the thousands of Americans, Western Europeans, and Japanese now being held against their will in Baghdad and Kuwait. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, Cairo.
There was one additional and still unconfirmed report from the Middle East today. Diplomatic sources in Saudi Arabia said Saudi anti-aircraft guns fired about 10 rounds of ammunition to deter 2 Iraqi reconnaissance planes close to the border with Kuwait. Iraq denied that any of its planes crossed the border. In a moment, tough talk from President Bush on reversing Iraqi aggression.
World News Saturday, brought to you by Bufferin.
Do you have VHS tapes or old film reels that you can't watch anymore? Let Space City Sprockets transfer those movies for you. Let us convert you to digital. Old home movies, family, friends, and treasured memories. SpaceCitySprockets.com.
He may officially be on a 3-week vacation in Kennebunkport, Maine, but President Bush spent this Saturday responding to the deepening crisis in the Middle East. As ABC's Ann Compton reports, Mr. Bush met with his top national security advisors and had some strong words for Iraq's President Saddam Hussein.
Before dawn, President Bush was making phone calls to thank Arab leaders, especially Egyptian President Mubarak, for putting troops into Saudi Arabia. For the next job of tightening the military noose around Iraq, he summoned Secretary of State Baker and National Security Advisor Scowcroft to Kennebunkport, where they all delighted in observing that Saddam Hussein must find himself a lot more isolated today than he was yesterday. President Bush said he supports anything it takes to get Saddam out of Kuwait and, to a point, out of power.
No, we're not prepared to support the overthrow, but I hope that these actions that have been taken will result in an Iraq that is prepared to live peacefully in a community of nations. And if that means Saddam Hussein changes his spots, so be it. And if he doesn't, I hope the Iraqi people do something about it.
The president still isn't calling the naval force in the Gulf by the military term blockade, but he insists that under United Nations orders, the sanctions are working.
I think we have the authority to stop a ship at sea under Chapter 7. What we want to do is see that no oil comes out through the Straits of Hormuz, and if it requires naval vessels to see that happens, fine.
President Bush promised that more European ships will be joining that blockade, and he said that so far, only one small Iraqi tanker has slipped through. Carol?
And we reported earlier that some Americans managed to get out of Iraq's hands, but there are still an estimated 3,000 Americans in Kuwait and 600 in Iraq. Was there anything said by administration officials today about those Americans left behind?
That certainly is still at the forefront of President Bush's thoughts. He and Secretary Baker both addressed that today by saying in an official statement from the White House that American diplomats in Baghdad are in contact almost hourly with Iraqi officials asking for help getting the Americans out. But they're still not calling them hostages because there's been no ransom demanded, and none of them has come to any harm. Incidentally, the U.S. and several other nations are still refusing to close their embassies in Kuwait in large part because the U.S. Embassy is looking after the 3,800 Americans still trapped in that country.
Thank you. Ann Compton with the president in Kennebunkport, Maine. The Persian Gulf crisis will be the topic tomorrow on This Week with David Brinkley. Guests will include Secretary of State James Baker, Abdul Amir al-Anbari, Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations, and Turgut Özal, the president of Turkey. More U.S. troops began deploying to Saudi Arabia today to join a rapidly swelling American military force that's prepared to defend that desert kingdom from possible Iraqi attack. ABC's Al Dale reports on one unit that's on its way from Georgia's Fort Stewart.
If there is desert fighting to be done, these are the men and machines who will be called on to do much of it, members of the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division. With their Desert Tan war machines, they have been trained in California's Mojave Desert for just that kind of warfare. The Pentagon says a brigade of around 2,300 troops will accompany tanks, armored personnel carriers, and field artillery to Saudi Arabia. First stop today was the port of Savannah, where the equipment brought by truck and train was being loaded onto ships. Family members left behind are worried, especially about Iraq's threat to use chemical weapons against American soldiers.
Yeah, that scares the heck out of you. Sure it does. Because once something starts, you don't know where it's going to end.
It's scary. We don't know what's going to happen there.
Members of the division are equipped with protective gear and clothing and trained to use it.
Gas! Gas!
But it is considered cumbersome and hot, especially in the desert, adding to the concern of soldiers who could be facing combat for the first time.
At this point, what's going through my head is whether I'm going to live or die.
Nervous, unsure. It's like walking in the dark, you never know.
The ships, called fast sea lift vessels, are said to be able to make the trip to the Middle East in about 10 days. Equipment problems today, though, have already caused some delays in departure, proving rapid deployment is not always as rapid as the military would like. Al Dale, ABC News, Savannah, Georgia.
Also on their way to Saudi Arabia, an unspecified number of C-130 transport aircraft from Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina, and the Navy hospital ship Comfort, which is leaving its port in Baltimore with 1,000 beds and facilities to treat victims of poison gas.
Confusing, isn't it? Making sense of all these nutritional fads. Seems like a new one comes along every day. Who wants to guess about nutrition? And that's where the Surgeon General of the United States comes in, with 7 guidelines for nutritious eating. And Whole Wheat Total meets all 7. Every single one. Whole Wheat Total. As far as I'm concerned, Total takes the guesswork out of nutrition.
4 profiles in quality. Pride.
When you get pride, you get quality. That's what I said back in '81.
And today we still have that same pride.
And from what we hear, a lot of people think we're doing a pretty good job.
You can hear the quality.
You can see the quality.
You can feel the quality in the way it handles.
Thanks.
That's what happens at Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln when quality is job one.
You bet we're finicky. At Price Pfister, when we make a faucet, we make it fit for a king. So we start with a foundation of solid brass inside, which makes it so durable, it's flat out terrific. Then we finish it to a fairly well outside, and price it to please the frugal in everyone. Price Pfister, the fabulous faucet with a funny name.
Which spread tastes more like real butter? That's right. In a nationwide test, rich, creamy Parquet spread beats Shed Spread Country Crock. For better, buttery taste, it's Parquet. What did you expect?
Now this is my kind of do-it-yourself project. Want to know any more? Ask Ace. That's what I do.
This 2-foot wooden step stool is just $4.99, and Ace Wasp and Hornet Killer works instantly just $1.88.
Hey, let me tell you, Ace is a place for me.
Iraq's invasion of Kuwait has caused some problems for Israel. In the Israeli-occupied West Bank today, hundreds of Palestinians demonstrated in support of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein and his call for a holy war against the West. But so far, Iraq's aggression hasn't threatened Israel directly, and as Dean Reynolds reports, The Israelis hope to keep it that way.
While the Israeli military is on defensive alert along this country's borders, the civilian population here is being encouraged to stay calm.
We are ready for any emergency.
This is, after all, a Middle East conflict without Israel.
Israel will not get involved in this conflict if we don't have to.
Before this crisis, Israel's right-wing government never passed up a chance to drum up domestic fears about Arab enemies. But now that the crisis has actually arrived, the message is not to worry. Yes, Saddam Hussein has chemical weapons, but the Israeli military has put out the word that he has no chemical warhead to fit on his long-range missiles. Missiles which are seen here as primitive and inaccurate. Let him try to send chemical weapons aboard warplanes, and officials here say the Israeli Air Force will teach him a lesson he will never forget. And though the timing this week of this Arrow missile test shot was a coincidence, it served to show off Israel's technological edge. Finally, sources say the likelihood of an attack by Iraq is considered so low that Israel hasn't even started to distribute its supply of gas masks nationwide. But sources say there is a second reason for that. Saddam Hussein could misinterpret it as a sign Israel is about to attack, and that might trigger a preemptive Iraqi strike. In the tripwire tension of this region, Israel is suddenly playing it cool and hoping that that message sinks in not just here, but in Iraq as well. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
The Kremlin, too, has been keeping relatively quiet about the Iraqi invasion. It won't even confirm a statement by Italy's foreign minister today that Moscow has successfully evacuated most of the 8,000 Soviet citizens who were in Iraq and Kuwait at the time of the invasion. As ABC's Jim Laurie reports, Soviet leaders have plenty of reasons to stay mum.
The coverage here of the Gulf crisis has been as cautious as the official Soviet view, portraying events more in sorrow than anger. Sorrow because, as commentators here note, Moscow has lost its most powerful ally in the Middle East, Saddam Hussein, recipient of billions of dollars of Soviet tanks and aircraft. Today, the Soviet press is calling Saddam the thief of Baghdad, and the cutoff of Soviet arms, said one article, got a very negative Iraqi response. Mikhail Gorbachev, maintaining a low profile on vacation, told the Egyptian president in a cable yesterday that the Soviets want to do all they can to put out the fire in the Gulf. But, he said, we are increasingly alarmed. Ever since the joint Baker-Shevardnadze condemnation of Iraq, official reaction to events has been remarkably muted. On the deployment of U.S. forces to Saudi Arabia, although the Soviets have 3 ships in the Gulf, a foreign ministry spokesman said Moscow does not believe military force is the answer. But popular reaction to American moves has been largely positive. I think the Americans had to show the world that aggression is not acceptable, said this man. And in front of the Iraqi embassy this week, Russians joined Kuwaitis who live here in protesting Iraqi aggression and praising U.S. action. While the Soviets, citing their new political thinking, joined the U.S. in condemning Iraq, they have no intention of becoming involved militarily. This is one crisis where this superpower prefers sitting on the sidelines. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
And we'll be back with more news in a moment.
If you love your pet, watch this. We'll prove that you can keep fleas and ticks off your dog or cat with Heart's Blockade. Fleas are all over this untreated lab dish. We've sprayed the left side of this dish with Heart's Blockade, while the right side remains untreated. Watch how Blockade repels the fleas. They literally jump to the untreated side. Ticks normally want to crawl to the top, as they do in this untreated tube. See how the Blockade-treated cap of this tube repels ticks? They stay at the bottom. Block fleas and ticks from your pet with Heart's Blockade.
For the past 6 years combined, Pontiac has outsold every brand of import. You're looking at the reasons why. Spirited performance, advanced technology, and pure driving excitement. The race to excitement continues with big cash back, like up to $2,000 on Grand Prix, and that makes the real winner you.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citibank, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization. Already helping 1 in every 4 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citibank, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Unfortunately, septic systems back up.
What a mess!
What an expense! But Riddex once a month adds millions of bacteria to digest waste and works to keep your septic system running trouble-free. Riddex, it helps prevent septic system backup.
I didn't think it could happen here, but it did.
To prevent water damage, millions trust their homes to Thompson's Water Seal. Its unique formula penetrates wood, concrete, and brick to lock water out like nothing else. It's the #1 seller, Thompson's Water Seal.
Yosemite National Park's spectacular sights would normally be enjoyed by 25,000 visitors on a weekend like this. But today they were clouded by smoke as wildfires burned 14,000 acres on the park's west side, forcing campers and other visitors to flee. Authorities say the fires are still spreading, but at a slower rate, since bulldozers have built protective lines around the fires and winds have died down. Washington, D.C. Mayor Marion Barry faced the public today, 1 day after a federal jury found him guilty of 1 count of cocaine possession, innocent of another count of cocaine possession, and failed to reach verdicts on 12 other counts against him. Many in this city are calling the declaration of a mistrial on those 12 counts a vindication of Marion Barry. Today, Barry himself did his best to further that impression and persuade federal lawyers not to prosecute him again. The story from Walter Rogers.
The mayor appeared vindicated by the trial's outcome, declaring now is the time to heal. He still attacked the federal government for prosecuting him.
The United States government must examine its conduct to see if it's been keeping with its responsibility.
Barry's lawyer also warned the government against attempting to retry the mayor on drug and perjury charges.
We stand, as I've said, ready to release the dove of peace, or if necessary, to rearm our arsenal of war.
Barry said nothing about the future. He's already announced he will not run again for mayor. The jurors, who were only supposed to decide the facts of Barry's guilt or innocence, indicated they were equally concerned with the peace of the city.
Despite tough decisions, I think we came out a united group of 12 people, and that's what this city needs as well. There's no question about that.
It was a very hard decision with a lot of jurors, but I think the decision speaks for itself.
Many here saw the hung jury as an acquittal of Marion Barry. But a legal scholar worried about the example this jury set.
We must remember this man was the head of the nation's capital, the head of law enforcement in the nation's capital in a situation of drug war.
It's fairly common for the government to re-prosecute a mistrial, but race and politics made the Barry case unique, and the government has till mid-September to decide whether to go for a second trial. Walter Rogers, ABC News at Federal Court in Washington.
Ray Gandalf joins us now from New York with today's sports highlights. Ray?
Thank you, Carol. Well, now that the Shoal Creek Country Club in Birmingham, Alabama has enrolled an honorary token black member, the spotlight on the PGA Championship has shifted from Shoal Creek's exclusionary policy to its nasty course. The long rough has the golfers mumbling to themselves. Fred Couples today hit one from the rough on one side of the green to the rough on the other. Wayne Grady, the halfway leader, extricated himself all right here on the 10th hole, and he's still in the lead after 3 rounds of the tournament. Nothing bothered Gil Morgan today. He shot a 7-under par 65, equaling the best round of the tournament, and he vaulted into contention at 2 under. Payne Stewart, the defending champion, played a consistently solid round, knocked a couple strokes off par, and he is most definitely in the hunt. And the leaderboard going into tomorrow's final round, Grady at 5 under par has a 2-stroke lead over Stewart and Couples. Morgan and Lauren Roberts are -2. The Los Angeles Rams and Kansas City Chiefs played an NFL exhibition game today in Berlin. Alfred Jackson of the Rams intercepted 2 passes, this one good for a touchdown, as the Rams won easily. Lots of trench warfare, no blitzkriegs. At the 53rd running of the Soapbox Derby in Akron, Ohio, Samantha Singin' Sammy Jones of Salem, Oregon won the Masters division. Her closest male competitor finished 3rd. And to quote the late Ethel Barrymore, that's all there is, there isn't any more. Carol?
Thanks, Ray. We'll be back in a moment with a final note.
Just this much Cortaid heals more kinds of itches than all of these. And for irritating rashes, more doctors recommend Cortaid than any other brand. Cortaid. It heals.
In about 10 minutes, you can either begin making fresh brewed iced tea, or you can begin drinking it. The iced teapot by Mr. Coffee, the modern way to make old-fashioned iced tea.
From the cafes of Paris comes the inspiration for a different kind of mustard, created especially for sandwiches.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon Parisian?
But of course.
Grey Poupon Parisian mustard for sandwiches.
Dentuaries. Now everybody's calling me the Fresh Mouth. Thanks to Super Strength Polidin Green. It's got a minty mouthwash ingredient, so it freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try Super Strength Polidin Green, the mouth freshening clean. Ah.
On This Week with David Brinkley, as the crisis continues in the Mideast, the American Secretary of State, the President of Turkey, and the Iraqi ambassador to the UN, Sunday.
Updating our top story tonight, the crisis in the Persian Gulf deepened today when Egyptian and Moroccan troops began arriving in Saudi Arabia and additional U.S. forces were deployed there. 11 Americans who had been trapped in Iraq's capital were allowed to leave and tonight are on a charter flight to Paris. President Bush told reporters the U.S. will do, quote, whatever it takes to evict Iraq from Kuwait. ABC News will keep you up to date on events in the Persian Gulf as they occur. Bob Jamieson will have more news later on the Weekend Report. That's our report for tonight. I'm Carol Simpson. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
From Washington, this has been World News Saturday.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.
Saturdays.
The 2 shows that set a new standard.
Saturdays.
The series that's been nominated for 7 Emmys.
Here you've got to play by a different set of rules.
China Beach.
Saturdays.
It's the most unique show on television.
Twin Peaks is different.
Now it may become the most awarded with 14 nominations.
Isn't it too dreamy?
Twin Peaks.
Saturdays.
Television the way you always dreamed it would be.
Tonight.
And coming up next on Eyewitness News, hundreds protest the future toxic waste site near a valuable water source. Also, an off-duty Houston police officer is recovering from a gunshot wound. The murder of a 38-year-old Houston man, the latest in a series of cocaine crimes. And Metro Union workers are taking a strike vote. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Boudreau, and I'll have these stories and much more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
There's one in-home decorator open to your every suggestion. Sleek, sassy, surprising. In a word, Sears. Sears Custom In-Home Decorating. Right now, during Sears special summer savings, select any level or vertical blind and get a matching valance absolutely free. Save 20% on level or monocle horizontal blinds and get a free valance. Or save 50% off our everyday low prices on selected level or pleated fabric shades. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation, and a Sears decorator will bring you this great 48-page idea book free. Remember, your custom levelers come with Sears' famous guarantee, so choose the one in-home decorator open to your every suggestion. suggestion. Sears Custom in-home decorating.
Call 1-800-347-2800. Operators are standing by to schedule your free in-home consultation. To get special savings on Livermore blinds and shades, call now. Custom in-home decorating by Sears. Your money's worth and a whole lot more.
Race to excitement! If you ever coveted, desired, or just plain wanted to get behind the wheel of driving excitement, the opportunity is here and now. Because Pontiac, the car company who's outsold every brand of import for the past 6 years combined, is offering you big cash back on all Pontiacs, like up to $2,000 on Grand Prix. Clearly, in this race to excitement, the winner is you.
See your Texas Gulf Coast Pontiac dealers today. 13 Eyewitness News is closed caption for the hearing impaired. You're watching Channel 13, KTRK TV, Houston, #1 in Texas. Eyewitness News with Debbie Johnson, Bob Boudreau, Tim Melton has sports, and Frank Billingsley's weather. Now, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Debbie Johnson has the evening off. In the news, hundreds of angry residents of Lake Houston neighborhoods are doing battle this evening against the proposed hazardous waste site. They say by protesting today, they're protecting Houston's future water supply. We get the story now from Christy Myers.
Toxic waste! No toxic waste!
People who live near Lake Houston literally stopped traffic today as they marched in protest across the lake on the McKay Bridge. Saving the lake has become their rallying cry after Hunter Industrial applied for a state permit to build a hazardous waste disposal facility on this field in nearby Dayton.
Usually when things happen, you don't get too concerned until you get close to home. This one has come too close to home.
The site is a massive one. We'll be handling every form of toxic waste, and it's just a profoundly bad idea to put a toxic waste disposal site in Lake Houston watershed where we get a lot of our drinking water from.
They fear truck accidents which could cause chemical spills into the lake below.
About 250 individuals walked the bridge today. What they didn't expect were the horns of support from people who just saw them and decided they liked what they had to say.
For some of the marchers today, it was an emotional experience.
I hope to stop this. My children are very important to me. And I just hate to think that we want to do this to all of our children. We cannot let this happen.
Actually, Lake Houston is completely not impacted by us. If any trucks do go across the bridge coming to our facility, it wouldn't be more than 3 or 4 a day, which certainly there are thousands of times as much material moving across there now.
Tuesday in public hearings, the Water Commission will listen to both sides. It is that commission which will decide if Hunter gets a hazardous waste permit.
Commissioners' court's against it. The local cities are against it. I can't think of anybody that's elected to public office that's for it, and we're going to communicate that to the Water Commission.
What to do with hazardous waste may be the toughest problem of the 90s. Industries in our area create approximately 12% of the nation's hazardous waste, and people in the Houston area already host more hazardous waste disposal sites than anywhere else in the state. Christy Myers, 13 Eyewitness News.
An 8-year-old Dickinson girl who was missing and later found remains hospitalized this evening after recovering from a brutal attack. Little Jennifer Schuett had been missing since Friday morning. Her mother discovered the bedroom window open and her daughter gone. Last night, some young children discovered that little girl in a wooded area near the apartment complex in which she lived. Family members say her throat had been slashed and she'd been sexually assaulted. Dickinson police say they have no suspects. The girl's condition, though, has been upgraded now from serious to fair. A Houston police officer remains hospitalized this evening after he was shot once in the back. According to police, Thurman Canton was off duty last night and working as a security guard at the Bicentennial Square Apartments. They say he saw 2 men, including a 19-year-old, drinking beer on the steps of this complex. After talking to them, he tried to handcuff one of the men. Authorities say it was then that the teenager shot Canton once in the back. He returned fire as that pair fled the scene. The officer then managed to get his apartment and call an ambulance. He was transported to Bentop Hospital. At this hour, police say they have no suspects. An apparent racially motivated beating death has members of the Anti-Defamation League locally just simply outraged. Police say that 15-year-old Hung Trong of Houston was beaten by 5 teenagers. Trong died the same day of those injuries. Police tracked down 2 18-year-old suspects after a witness got their license plate number. They are identified now as Derek Hilla and Kevin Allison. Both have been charged with the crime and described as skinheads by police, a group sometime known for racial violence. The charge is murder. The Anti-Defamation League says it's that type of racially motivated crime that seems to be on the rise.
We were shocked. And I feel that it basically, it tragically underscores an alarming trend that we find throughout the country where biased crimes are definitely on the increase.
Finkelstein says that the League keeps track of racially motivated crimes, and the report shows a 100% increase in the Houston area of crimes that are solely motivated by racial hatred. 38-year-old Peter Levy was stabbed and beaten to death at a Houston apartment complex back on Friday morning. For his parents, they're reliving a nightmare, and for apartment residents, they say it's the last straw. Our Liz Exon has that story.
A mother's searing anguish cut through the silence of the beautiful morning. She had just seen the body of her son being wheeled out of his apartment. 38-year-old Peter Levi was brutally stabbed, beaten, and strangled to death. His father says they've been through this before. Their other son was shot to death on the streets of Houston almost 3 years ago.
Oh, I just say it didn't happen. Especially my wife, we're both, sick. So it's going to be more hard on both of us.
The victim lived in the apartment with his uncle, and it was his uncle who found him beaten in the apartment Thursday night. The uncle says Levi refused to go to the hospital and only said, "They got me again." The uncle then discovered Levi dead in the morning. Apartment residents, some who are afraid to go on camera, say the complex is crime-ridden, with its root, crack cocaine.
Well, since I moved down here, there's been a lot of breaking-ins and robberies, and they beat on people, and every entrance to the apartments after dark, there's people selling crack and coke and everything.
I moved in Monday night, and it seemed like every night I've been here, there's been somebody breaking somebody's apartment, beating somebody up.
He says he wants to move out. We caught Jim Franklin in the process of leaving.
I moved in Tuesday afternoon. I was robbed Tuesday night. Yeah. And then I had already planned on moving out today, and when I found out about this, I'm getting out of here right now.
But where do you run to? As one resident put it, you can run, but you can't hide. Crack cocaine and the violence it sparks is everywhere. Peter Levi became another of its many victims. Liz Exon, 13 Eyewitness News.
It's business as usual today for a Houston oil company working in that oil-rich country of Saudi Arabia. More Aramco employees today left from Intercontinental Airport for Saudi. The 18 workers say they don't feel threatened by the conditions that are now taking place in that country.
I don't believe that it's anywhere near as bad as it may be made out to be, and I'm kind of enjoying the excitement as well.
Meantime, in the Middle East, Egyptian troops are now en route to aid the Saudi Arabians from Iraq. Today, Saudi Arabian troops reportedly fired at 2 Iraqi reconnaissance planes near the Kuwait border. Sources say the Saudis fired about 10 rounds at the planes to turn them around, and it apparently worked, as apparently those aircraft never crossed the Kuwait border. Well, coming up, a one-man Houston school board election and Metro Union members and the possibility of a future strike. Those stories in just a minute.
At the Furniture Idea, we have Houston's largest selection of sofa styles, whether your interest is traditional, country, or contemporary. You also choose from over 1,000 fabrics to create your own look, so there's no reason to compromise your taste. We're changing the way America buys upholstery. The Furniture Idea features only solid oak frames with a lifetime warranty for the quality you expect. We also have chairs, sleepers, and sectionals in the fabric of your choice, currently all at reduced prices. The Furniture Idea, with 4 locations, Houston's largest retail upholstery specialist.
It's over, and Gullo has Toyota.
What a clearance.
The last of the 90 Toyotas at sacrifice prices while they last.
Glad I got here when I did.
This is the one you wait for, the year-end clearance at the warehouse. Herself, $199 down or $99 a month. Save $5,000 on a Toyota. Two-wheel drive trucks, $199 down or $99 a month. Don't wait. Get a clearance price before it's too late.
What a sale.
Take the Gulf Bank exit off the North Freeway now. Gullo has Toyota, the Toyota warehouse. You want to buy a Toyota or what?
The new Tide is Ultra Tide.
If you have a baby, you gotta try it.
New Ultra Tide. Ultra intensified.
I saw this tiny little scoop, and I thought, unbelievable. What can you expect with carrots planted this deep?
For cleaning deep down inside, new Tide is ultra powerful. One little scoop cleans down to the fiber itself.
Perfect. It's out of sight.
The new Tide is Ultra Tide.
You gotta try it.
I made a great decision. When my youngest child started school, I decided it was time for me to start too. So I called the local community college. At first I was worried that I wouldn't fit in and couldn't make it in college at my age. But they made me feel welcome and steered me toward courses that helped me get my academic skills back up to strength. Make a great decision. Get back in school. Call your local community college today.
Galveston Sheriff deputies this evening are searching for a man who is presumed to have drowned in Dickinson Bay today. Sheriff's deputies say at about 11 o'clock this morning, an oysterman was trying to untangle the rope which was caught in his motor's propeller. Witnesses say the man went under the water to untangle the line and never came up. Witnesses went ashore then to call the authorities for help, and at this time, sheriff's deputies are continuing the search. The Houston Ship Channel is in full operation today. Coast Guard officials have reopened that waterway to two-way traffic for the first time since the Galveston Bay oil spill. The channel was closed when a Greek tanker collided with 3 barges near Redfish Island. Salvage crews have worked for the last 2 weeks trying to remove a crippled barge from the channel. The collision, of course, spilled 700,000 gallons of oil into the bay. Meantime, the Coast Guard has reopened its hearing into the cause of the collision. Yesterday, officials viewed a videotape of the barge accident, which was shot by a tourist. The officials of the Coast Guard say they were able to get the testimony they needed during the one-day hearing, and so far they have no plans to extend the probe. About 200 of the 1,800 members of the Transport Workers Local 260 have assembled in a southeast Houston park this morning. The gathering, though, was not about fun and games, but rather about hammering out a new agreement with the Transit Authority. Our Ben Wilson was there.
Saturday morning in the park was no picnic for Transport Workers Union members. They drove and then walked to a pavilion large enough to handle a discussion on the business at hand, namely, whether or not a strike will be needed to get higher wages and lower health care premiums out of the Metropolitan Transit Authority. Support for union leadership was strong.
We're going to do everything possible to avoid a strike. But if we don't have anything left, then we don't have no choice.
What the union says it wants is an approximate 8% pay increase and a health care premium lower than the $194 a month a family of 4 would pay under the Metro offer. But there were some who wondered what would happen if workers walked off their jobs.
Greyhound went on the strike. Where are those people? The air controllers went on the strike. Where, ever since Reagan got in office, a union is not a union. Okay? All y'all talking about strike and walking out, you will not have no job.
When the time came to vote for a strike as an option, practically every hand was raised. As some volunteered to sign up for informational picketing of Metro headquarters, others thought about the consequences of a strike.
Tell you the truth, I can't afford it, but I'll take a struggle just to back this union.
Outside Metro headquarters, a company spokeswoman says Metro would prefer a performance bonus over an across-the-board pay increase.
This performance bonus is based on performance of the system and individual performance, just as you or I would be evaluated in our jobs.
And though Metro contends a strike would be illegal, there is optimism the buses will continue rolling. In addition to giving their president the authority to call a strike, transport union members also agreed to picket City Hall and Metro headquarters. A possible strike isn't even likely until sometime in September. Ben Wilson, 13 Eyewitness News.
A number of school board elections are being held across the area today, but for one candidate, the outcome of the election is already certain. Felix Fraga is definitely going to win. He's running for a seat on the HISD school board. It's a seat he's held since last February when he was appointed to replace Tina Reyes, who resigned. At the time of that appointment, many in the Hispanic community were upset at the selection, but now those opponents have become supporters.
I think it's something that I had hoped would happen at some time. I didn't realize it would happen this quickly. It's been a gratifying experience.
Fraga resigned from the seat yesterday so he could legally run in today's election. His district lies primarily to the north and the east of downtown Houston. Still ahead, some crucial confrontations for those baseball teams entering the pennant race. There are some. And the third round of the controversial PGA Championship over in Atlanta. Alabama, that is. Jeff McShann will correct my geography when we come back. Stay with us.
Instead of hitting behind it,
Turn the key.
Exxon brings you 2 new gasolines that reduce emissions. New Exxon 93 Supreme and Exxon Plus, each precision engineered for high performance and lower emissions.
Do you have VHS tapes or old film reels that you can't watch anymore? Let Space City Sprockets transfer those movies for you. Let us convert you to digital. Old home movies, family, friends, and treasured memories. SpaceCitySprockets.com.
Our turnover's down, our productivity's up, morale's up, including mine.
For information on job retraining, call this number.
Tuesday, it's an hour of laughs. First, congratulations to Roseanne for 2 Emmy nominations, including Best Actor. Roseanne, be there. And it's the comedy series with nominations for Best Supporting Actor and Best Actor. Coach Tuesday.
Coming up next on Houston's Great, if Madonna's new figure has inspired you, join us for expert advice on upper body workouts. From the Wonder Years, Jason Hervey. One is known as a legend in Tejana music, and the other's a new kid on the block. Flaco Jimenez and Emilio Novaita. Meet a man with a tale or two to tell, and a hot story that is definitely a case of a fiery family affair. That and more next on Houston's Great.
I'm Tim Paulson, Vice President of the Hair Club for Men, and of course, I'm also a client. Like these men, I called Hair Club's toll-free number requesting their informative booklet about thinning hair. Probably the best call I ever made. Inside was everything you need to know about hair replacement, including this complete objective bibliography. You'll learn about toupees, weaves, transplants, some misconceptions of minoxidil, as well as Hair Club's non-surgical strand-by-strand method, which adds ideally matched top-quality human hair to your own hair. In no time, you have a natural-looking head of hair that lets you lead a worry-free, active lifestyle. No chemicals, no surgery, yet it feels like a part of you. And the price is based on your degree of hair loss. Remember, if you want more facts, free and without obligation, you can call this toll-free number for your booklet. No salesman will call you. Consultations are free.
And remember, I personally guarantee your satisfaction. I'm Cy Sperling, and I'm not only the Hair Club president, but I'm also a client.
Here's one great offer on one great new car. The totally new 1991 Ford Escort. From now until September 3rd, your Ford dealer can arrange low 4.8% financing for 48 months on any new 1991 Ford Escort. Plus, get up to $744 in factory discounts. But remember, low 4.8% financing for 48 months on a new 1991 Ford Escort only lasts until September 3rd.
We don't need the best we'll do. Texas Ford and you.
Paul Newman is out to win the prize tonight at 10:30.
Today's a new day. Houston's growing strong. You're feeling okay. Here's where you belong. No holding back now. On the right track now. Stand up and tell them that Houston's great. We're Houston people filled with Texas pride. Shout it, no doubt about it. Stand up and tell them that Houston's great.
Hello everyone, I'm Jan Glenn, and thanks for joining us for Houston's Great. Well, years ago, people used to get out on the porch swing on hot summer evenings and just cool off by telling stories. Now, air conditioning has changed that quite a bit, but Alvin Van Black still met a man who has a few tales to tell.
One day I saw this car, and I saw its sign saying tornado-proof buildings, and I thought to myself, what could they be? Boy, was there a story here.
What are we looking at?
Well, when it's down, it's behind that thing up there.
What is that?
That's a secret latch.
William Gilliam is just one of those folks you love to talk to because he's got one story after another.
You know, I've always said, if you got brains enough, you can do anything.
So So some years ago he needed a garage, so he built one with 2x6s and bolts. He wanted a barbecue pit, so he built one, a big Texas-sized one. He's big on what you call overbuilding.
So you can cook a whole cow in there.
Mr. Gilliam says that one of these days he's going to get after that idea about bolted together houses and garages. He says he's got some letters printed up that he wants to mail out.
You know, it got so dadgum hot there and feel like doing too much here lately.
So, since it's just too hot to do much work, we started to talk about his flying lessons in 1919.
Main thing, I really learned to fly without an instructor.
You just get in and go? At Love Field in Dallas, when Love was just a grassy meadow.
You never had any accidents?
No.
Yeah, we were talking about just learning to fly in the First World War.
Oh, yeah, he fell out of the airplane even.
You told me you were this professional flyer, and your wife tells me you fell out of the plane. What happened?
We run off the hole in the nose low when I fell out.
William Gilliam, just the kind of guy to spend a hot afternoon visiting. I'm Alvin Van Black.
Well, another person who writes stories for a living is author Pat Booth. Well, here you go, released just in the heat of summer. 2 scorching novels, Beverly Hills and Malibu. It's interesting that both of these came out at the same time.
Yes, well, in fact, what happened is Malibu, I was writing last year, and I actually wrote the book very fast because it's the first autobiographical book I've written. I fell madly in love with Malibu, absolutely madly in love. And I was writing a book about a photographer who has sort of like dilemmas in her life, and she goes to Malibu to find herself. And funnily enough, the book wrote itself basically in about 7 or 8 months, and normally I take about 18 months to write a book. So Beverly Hills was the year before, and it so happened that they're both coinciding.
A lot of them, some of the things that you go through in your life are kind of in the book in some way.
Very much
You've
so.
been a model, a photojournalist, or a photographer and a journalist. So you, in some way, you get these in your books, all the different lifestyles.
Well, you know, I call my books faction. There's a lot of fact in there and a lot of fiction. And you can fall over a lot of real names. For example, in Beverly Hills, there's a sort of Warren Beatty type character, and then a lot of real people. And the same in Malibu. You know, there are lots of scenes with Martin Sheen, who's actually happens to be the sort of mayor of Malibu, the honorary mayor of Malibu. So there are lots of real people. And I like to, because of my journalism, I like to put a lot of real non-fiction work in my books.
This is kind of interesting. Would, let me see if would Robert Hartford, is that going to be the Warren Beatty?
He's kind of Warren Beatty in Beverly Hills.
So describe him. What is his character in?
Well, he's somebody that absolutely adores women. And actually, I was fascinated because I've always written about men who don't really like them very much, but we all know Warren Beatty absolutely adores women. And I knew him quite well at one stage because I had a house in London, and he was going out with Julie Christie at the time. So he would do his kind of calisthenics in the garden, and I'd sort of watch him. He was fabulous. And a lot of girlfriends of mine, not me of course, but a lot of girlfriends of mine had affairs with him and said he was absolutely wonderful. So I wrote about him in Beverly Hills.
Does he know that that is him?
I think he does now, Jan.
Okay, so what did Warren say to you whenever he read the book?
You know, it's very interesting. Most people either ignore the fact that they're in my books, or what they do is they phone me, and they're rather flattered because I do write kind of flattering sort of assumptions of them. And in Malibu, I use the real people. But again, you see, in Beverly Hills, I've kind of used other people. This time, for the first time, I've kind of abused myself. I'm sort of opening myself up to show my reader.
I have to ask you, because I asked Jackie Collins the same question one time. When she goes to a party, you know she's sitting there and she's taking notes on everything that's going on because she might want to use that in another book. And I said, do people sometimes run the other way when you walk in the front door because they don't want to be included in your novels? And she said, yeah, sometimes they kind of stay away from her. But if you're doing only flattering characters in your books.
Well, don't forget, you see, I think that the difference, I put a lot of real people in my books. So you meet Barbara Streisand, you meet Madonna. The first opening chapter of Malibu, for example, is a concert that I went to for Don't Bungle the Jungle, and there was Madonna doing this outrageous dance with her girlfriend. And I put that in as real, factual work. So the people that are in my book, I actually document as I really met them, as I really see them. So I don't disguise them at all. So either they like it or they hate it. And actually, most of the people are flattered.
Welcome to Houston. If you think Chevys, Olds, and Geos are cheaper here, you're wrong.
Lawrence Marshall Chevy Olds Geo in the little town of Hempstead is the #1 Chevy truck retailer in America. How do we do it? By selling for less.
And now, during our end-of-model year clearance, Lawrence Marshall's famous discount prices on Chevys, Olds, and Geos get even lower.
Lawrence Marshall Chevy Olds Geo, $290 to Hempstead. We clobber big city prices.
The biggest birthday event of the year is happening right now at the Home Depot. It's Home Depot's birthday celebration, and at every store you'll find more of everything to improve your home, all at guaranteed low prices. We proudly feature Hunter ceiling fans to add beauty and comfort to any room. And remember, Home Depot is the biggest Hunter fan dealer in the world.
When you're with us at Home Depot, you feel right at home.
Why spend $100,000 or more when you can own beautiful lakefront property at Point Aquarius for as little as $27,900? Point Aquarius is Lake Conroe's most exciting lake community, featuring a new marina, lakeside clubhouse, pools, and tennis courts. Recreation and relaxation for you and your whole family. Excellent owner financing is available. Drive out today to select your own Point Aquarius lakefront property for just $27,900. Take FM 1097 just 5 miles west of I-45 North. That's FM 1097 5 miles west of I-45 North.
An investment in Brinks Home Security Service provides peace of mind. Brinks will equip your home with 3 door window sensors, a siren, a motion detector, and a control pad. Your vital link to Brinks' 24-hour central monitoring.
We have an intrusion alarm at a residence?
That's peace of mind. Protect your family and your home. Let Brinks watch while you can't.
Find out how affordable home security can be. Call Brinks at 1-800-225-5247.
Madonna just wrapped up her world concert tour, and if you caught any of it at all, you may have noticed her new figure, especially the tone in her upper body. And today we have a workout program for you if you want to reshape your own upper body. Let's begin with the tricep, the part of the upper arm behind the bicep.
Proper form, Jen, to execute a tricep kickback. First of all, we're grabbing a bench. Maintain alignment of the lower back, from the lower back to the top of the neck area. It's always a leaning back motion when you do this exercise. Make sure the elbows are soft in both areas, both the right arm and left arm. Okay, let's begin our exercise. Here we go. We're extending back, bending the lower part of the radialis area. This is your lower part of the forearm area, and curling in. Working that tricep muscle. Okay, make sure, Jan, that when we do this exercise, we remember not to hyperextend the elbow. Now, this is hyperextending the elbow, okay? And you don't want to do that. This is an excellent exercise if you want to increase that strength in that area. Most women do, okay? And
that's called the old bat wing. We're getting rid of the bat wing.
Old bat wing. One other alternative you can do is rotating and turning it in and rotating it forward. Okay, this goes a little more depth in that area.
For the tricep, another exercise we're going to work on specifically and concentrating in the back part of the tricep, right in this longer head of the tricep, so we call it tricep extension. What you're going to do, actually grab one dumbbell, one free weight dumbbell, start with the elbows at least shoulder width apart. Again, real trick to this is have proper alignment, body alignment. Make sure the abdominals are in tight. Try not to hyperextend the lower back. So what you want to do is abdominals in. You start going all the way down, keep a slight flexion, coming up, locking the tricep, keeping it back, and keep it slightly bent though. What you want to do is always keep a constant contraction, constant tension in the tricep area. So that way you're never resting the muscle. You're always adding resistance going up. This is the tricep extension.
The bicep is the upper part of the arm between the deltoid muscle and the lower part of the forearm.
And now for the biceps, what we're going to do, we're going to start with alternating bicep curls. Okay, before we start again, make sure again that your shoulders are soft. They're totally relaxed. Okay, knees are slightly soft. Knees are always bent in position. Good. And abdominals in nice and tight. Okay, here we go. We're going to begin this exercise. We're alternating our curl from the right to the left arm. Good. Now, how's your breathing there?
Oh, I forgot to breathe.
You forgot to breathe. Breathing is very important in this exercise.
This isolates one bicep at a time. What you want to do, again, emphasize body alignment. Place the supporting hand on the opposing knee. Grab the barbell with the opposite hand. Now, place the elbow on the inside of that kneecap. You want to go ahead and just keep that support right there. So what you want to do is go ahead and curl it up. Bring it down slowly, resisting slowly. Bring it up, curl. and up. You also want to make sure that you're resisting coming up. Keep a constant contraction up and down. Never lock the elbow.
The trapezius is the upper part of the neck area extending from the deltoid to the upper extension of the neck.
In proper form in this exercise, again, we maintain alignment of our lower back, so knees are always soft here, Jan. Abdominals are in again. Elbows are always soft. And have you ever seen guys with suits on and you wonder what happened to their shoulders? That's because they don't do this exercise. This is a great exercise to help give you a sense of balance in the upper part of your body.
This is called a shoulder shrug. What you want to do is grab 2 weights, 2 heavier weights. What you're going to do, you can rotate them either forward. Shrug is actually lifting up and down. Up and down. You can go forward. Once you do a few repetitions going forward, you go ahead and do the opposing side, which is going ahead and rotating it back. Okay. Now this again, this is also a transition into working also in the deltoid area. So you're working the deltoids, going forward, and you're also working a little bit of the upper pectoral region, upper chest.
The area that sort of hangs out over those strapless gowns is the latissimus dorsi.
Good. Slightly bend the elbows just a little more.
1 more.
Give me 5 more.
No, 1 more.
Let's go.
Oh, come on, guys.
Oh, come on, come on. We're helping you. We're spotting you here.
I'm spotted.
When you buy your new Chevrolet from Mac Haik, drive it for a month. If you don't fall in love with it, we'll take it back. Your new Mac Haik Chevy has to be the one you want, or you can apply the full purchase price on any of the car or truck that Mac Haik sells. We've got the price you want, the people you like, and the service you expect. Mac Haik and Chevrolet. Satisfaction guaranteed, and we put it in writing.
You can't fake the feeling that brings back high feeling.
Rodney D. Young presents When the World Was Young, Part 2. In ancient times,
Okay, back it up. Looking good. Yeah. Look
having an accident could really leave you between a rock and a hard place. But even if you have an accident today, Rodney D. Young can still offer you auto liability insurance and prices that won't leave you flat.
We're talking serious overtime here.
Call 644-6483 today.
Think young, Rodney D. Young.
There's a big difference between Hugh Palmer and Phil Graham. As a senator, Graham has voted against every penny for educating our kids. I vote for it. Graham is so extreme that he votes against Meals on Wheels. Hugh Palmer passed the Hunger Relief Act. If you agree with me, I need your help.
Calling 1-900-420-8890 helps Hugh Palmer with a $10 contribution.
This year, 1 out of 2 marriages will end in divorce. Courts are overflowing with divorce cases and child custody battles. Divorce not only scars families emotionally, but all too frequently the results leave many of those involved financially strapped. Next week, Christy Myers looks at Texas's state of divorce. Can legal costs be reduced? Can child custody fights be avoided? What about child support? Is there a need for alimony? The Texas Divorce Battleground. Next week on Live at 5 and 13 Eyewitness News at 10.
One has been called the grandfather of Tejana music, the other the new kid on the block. So welcome our next guests, Flaco Jimenez and Emilio Norvaita.
Amelia, is Tex-Mex music now mainstreaming into Nashville, into music? I mean, it's no longer a separate category, just sort of going in there, the big companies picking up labels?
Right, it sure is. I believe it's grown to, the big markets, Capitol Records, CBS have taken control of Tex-Mex music. For example, Europe and Mexico. It's more international now, and the Houston Rodeo last year.
That was a sellout. That was
I tell you what, well, and all these people are just growing. It's just a growing stream right now.
Flaco, you're part of this legendary group. I mean, Texas Tornadoes getting together now. You'll start touring with the Texas Tornadoes after this, right?
After this, yes, we're going to tour the West Coast. And
listen to this lineup, friends. Freddie Fender, Flaco, Augie Myers, and Doug Somm, who were with one time with the Sir Douglas Quintet. The 4 of you collectively have made up music history. I mean, it's unbelievable, separately as collectively. So this is a force of a new CD you got out in a video. This is part of the new release, right?
Yes, and the record's going to be released, in fact, tomorrow.
And it is called?
Texas Tornadoes.
Texas Tornadoes.
Yes.
And it's the first release collectively?
Yes.
Wow. Unbelievable. I want to ask you this as well. Flaco, for those of you that may not know, is a nickname which means skinny. So you, by your own keeping of the name, you've been on a lifetime diet, right? You had no other choice but to stay in shape.
No other choice. No, I was skinnier than, you know, and when I was
Who tagged you with that?
Oh, well, this guy, disc jockey from San Antonio. So I used to play live shows in radio in a local radio station. So he decided to not to call me Leonardo, which is my name, you know, real name. And being that I was real skinny or whatever, so he said, okay, you're going to be Flaco Jimenez from now on.
Your father was great as well.
Well, yes.
The dance bands of the...
Yes, he's considered the pioneer of Tex-Mex music.
Was there a time when you were just a little boy and used to follow around with him? And was there ever any other choice for you in your life that you would pick?
Well, I always wanted to be around him, you know, because well, music really hit me, you know, really strong, you know. And being that my granddaddy was a musician, especially in the accordion instrument. So, and then I used to carry my dad's accordion when he was going to play, and I wanted to be around, be a part of it, you know.
Emilio, now you're raising a family, right? Your wife's name is Cindy, is that correct?
Cindy.
You live in San Antonio, and you have a little boy?
It's my first boy, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
so now he's going to follow around, right?
I think so. He's going to carry my guitar and my microphone, I believe. But, yeah, he's a 7-month-old boy, and it's kind of hard to leave home nowadays, you know.
Do you feel, you know, we've known George Strait, you know, which they said, you're George Strait Light Music, and we've known a lot of other recording artists that we've watched come up and come on the show at the very early stage of their careers and then when they were big. Can you feel that momentum? Can you sort of, there's a lot of electricity, and I know Flaco will confirm, you know what it's like, but as a newcomer, can you sort of feel this all building for you?
I really do. I feel like people are realizing that this is it's not music that just came up. It's been the roots have been here for a long time. But I do feel the trend, like you say, and different companies. I just got signed with Tony Lama Boots for 3 years, and the endorsements and everything that all the pop music and everything is coming through.
One thing about Latin music and a Latin love song, there's no confusion. You know it's a love song. Even if you don't even understand it, you know it's a love song.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck with the new release with the Texas Tornadoes.
Oh, yes.
That's going to be great.
Yes,
Good luck with the Rio Band and yourself as well.
Thank you, sir.
Well, it seems like every summer some controversy arises over the use and overuse of our national parks. And this year, it's the mountain bike.
It is the latest confrontation to disturb the tranquility of the nation's parks. Not so much people against the environment, but people against people. Along the exclusive refuge of hikers and equestrians, parks are being invaded by mountain bikers who can reach speeds up to 40 miles an hour.
There have been injuries to horses, injuries to people, injuries to bikers. There have been bikers hitting bikers even.
Our medical aid responses definitely quadrupled, at least quadruple.
In the last decade, mountain bikes with their wide tires designed for rugged terrain have gone from a fad to a phenomenon, with more than 10 million sold. In California, they account for 80% of all bike sales, and some bikers admit the thrill comes from speeding through the wilderness.
Just euphoric. I mean, it's a great feeling. I mean, going slow is not enough.
It might be analogous to doing downhill skiing, sensation of controlled energy.
But some parks have declared the bikes out of control. In New York, Rockefeller State Preserve has banned mountain bikes. In Marin County, California, parks have imposed speed limits and set radar traps.
Off your bike now.
In some parks, violators face fines up to $1,000 and jail terms.
Citing you for 29 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone.
Speeding is not the only problem. Some bikers wander off established roads, causing damage to fragile landscapes.
Excuse me. Yeah. You shouldn't be doing this. You see you're causing erosion here?
Mountain bike organizations are trying to control the problem, organizing classes to educate bikers about the rules of the road.
We want you to ride slow and say hello.
The organizations oppose any restrictions on their popular pastime, claiming only a small percentage of the mountain bikers are irresponsible.
The problem has been blown out of proportion, such that now the perception is that there is a much greater problem than actually is.
Still, park officials throughout the country are holding hearings and conducting studies to determine whether mountain bikes should be banned from all park areas or whether there can be a peaceful coexistence in places that exist to provide peace and tranquility. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, San Francisco.
Announcing no down payment financing, or you can have special financing with low payments. Look, a 90 Geo Metro Coupe, $79 a month. A 90 Chevy Cavalier, $98 a month. A 90 Geo Prism, $98 a month. And a 90 Geo Storm, $144 a month. And a 90 Chevy Corsica, just $98 a month. Where? At Giant Worthington Chevrolet. Come down the Southwest Freeway to Hillcroft, open till midnight.
Oh, no, he's got that camera again.
Great new house, Frank.
Oh, hi, Herb. Love the new house, Frank said it cost a bundle to heat and cool.
Nope, got a heat pump.
With all this space.
Herb, this is a good sense home. The heat pump makes it really energy efficient.
Yeah, I've got a good sense home. I love mine.
Yeah, mine's comfortable all the time, too.
But you know all about that. You own a good sense home. Don't you, Herb? Don't you?
Not yet.
The Good Sense Home, saving you money like no other home can.
The new Tide is Ultra Tide.
I used it, and it was great. It really was. It's the be-all, end-all.
New Ultra Tide. Ultra intensified.
I didn't think this little scoopful would do the trick. Strawberry jam. This is deep.
For cleaning deep down inside, new Tide is ultra powerful. One little scoop cleans down to the fiber itself.
Every tuck, every rib, clean, beautiful.
The new Tide is Ultra Tide.
Oh, you'll see.
Your Texas Ford dealers know what being the best is all about, like Ford Ranger, #1 in climbing. Ranger's the best-selling compact pickup in Texas, and with good reason, like more standard horsepower, more standard payload, and more options for the money, like two-tone paint, power steering, air, and tachometer. And right now, get big savings even before you make your best deal. Ford Ranger, what being the best is all about. See your Texas Ford dealer today.
Texas Ford News.
He's the older brother you love to hate. From the Wonder Years, Jason Hervey.
Let's talk about the new show now this season, the 4th season. Any twists, any changes? Are you going to mellow out a little bit?
No, not going to mellow out. My character is going to stay the same. But I get a car this year on the show. I get either a Corvair or a Beetle Bug. I get one of those two. And I get fired from the hamburger place, and then I start to work at the pizza place.
What you like?
And that's actually all I know of right now.
Squeeze it. I don't know. It's the only way to get rid of it. Unless it makes it about 10 times bigger.
Well, what sort of trouble, though, will you cause for Kevin?
Oh, I'm sure whatever I can do. Maybe, like, break a finger or two or something.
When you were in Houston for the Night of 1,000 Lights, we thank you for that, I might add. It was your birthday that night on stage, and we were downtown. I wanted to ask you, what did you get from all of your friends and relatives when you went back home?
Oh, I got good gifts. I got some good stuff. I got, just like clothes and some jewelry and whatever, just birthday stuff.
Birthday stuff.
Pretty
But had a good time?
Had a good time. That's the largest birthday party I ever had. 50,000 people at my birthday party.
So everyone, welcome to my 18th birthday party.
One of the other things, we've just returned from Los Angeles ourselves. We were doing some interviews with the stars of the fall shows, and everyone shares one thing in common. Their schedule, for those people that are not familiar with what it's like to be a star, their schedule is horrendous. They start from sun up to sundown and sometimes way into the night. Is yours pretty much the same?
Sometimes with a few exceptions. I work hard, but not like that hard. I do have time off, and I do have some time to recreate and do things that, I really want to do.
What about the rest of the cast now? Winnie and everyone else, how are they doing?
They're doing okay. They're doing good. Danica, who plays Winnie, is right about to get her driver's license, so I'm about to, stay in my house for a while. And Everyone else is doing good. Fred, July 9th, just turned 14, so happy birthday to you, Fred. And everyone's doing great.
And finally today, a story that is definitely a case of a fiery family affair.
There goes Chuck Bouchard with his kids taking a final test drive in his wife's 1941 Mack pumper truck. If you ever drive up to Chuck's front door, there's a huge fireboat water cannon in the front yard. The doorbell's a little fire alarm box, and inside, hey, wow, it looks like the fire museum. Chuck's a Houston firefighter, Marla's his wife, but she's a Westfield volunteer firefighter too. They met at a firefighting contest. Where else?
And he was the mascot in West University when he was 2 years old. He's just grown up in it, and he's always loved it, and he's been in it for, well, his whole life.
Chuck's a firefighter at Station 74. That's way out north Houston way. He's also a fire chief of the Aldine Volunteer Fire Department, and there's more. He's a serious old fire truck restorer. You've seen his house. Wait till you see his backyard.
You see these trucks, they're for sale, or they may be going to a junkyard, and the only thing you can do is try to salvage them to either save them for parts.
You can't stand that, can you?
No,
Not going to go to the junkyard with you around.
Not if we can help it.
There are more than 20 old, and to the untrained eye, sort of beat-up fire trucks that Marla and Chuck have in the yard. Now, to most of us, these trucks look like that they've been to an awful lot of fires. But slowly, they're going to be either restored to like-new condition or used for parts.
Now, there's somebody somewhere that needs parts for, an old truck. And we keep a lot of old parts. And
does that just look very old, or is that the oldest one around?
Of the ones out here, that's probably the oldest one.
What is it?
It's a 1926 Seagrave service ladder truck from Blackwell, Oklahoma.
Chuck and Marla restored this one. It's in perfect shape, and one day you might see it in a parade. But if things ever get really rough for the Westfield Volunteer Fire Department, you might see it working again. It's been saved by a whole family of firefighters with a unique hobby. I'm Alvin Van Black.
And that's our show for today. Thanks for joining us for Houston's Grace. And next week, instrumentalist Kenny G. Bye-bye.
Do you have VHS tapes or old film reels that you can't watch anymore? Let Space City Sprockets transfer those movies for you. Let us convert you to digital. Old home movies, family, friends, and treasured memories. SpaceCitySprockets.com